Good evening. I have just 6:30. Let's wait a minute or two to allow more people to join us, then we'll get started with the meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hi, Barry.
Good evening, Tricia. Good to see you. Good.
You guys just let me know whenever you're ready for me to give the, basics of Zoom.
I'm ready whenever Barry is.
I'm ready now, Will.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. We are excited to have you here for our Parks Committee meeting. If this is your first time joining us for one of our virtual committee meetings, we're happy to have you. You'll notice that you're muted and you're going to stay muted throughout the duration of the meeting. The only folks who will be unmuted at any given time are the co-chairs, Barry and Tricia, and any of our presenters for each of the agenda items. Following each presentation and between each agenda items, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen and pressing the raise hand button there. Don't press the wave or the thumbs up button. Those will disappear very quickly. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and it's *6 to unmute whenever you're called on. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. If you're having any problem, the chat is available for technical support to help with Zoom software problems. It's not to ask questions of the co-chairs or the presenters. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll want to go to the participants section where you can find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we just ask that you do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we might not be able to see you and we might miss you. So chat me if you're having any problems finding the raise hand button or any problems with Zoom. I'm here to support. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Barry and Tricia and they can get the meeting going.
Thanks very much, Will. Welcome to the November meeting of the Parks and Waterfront Committee meeting of Manhattan Community Board 8. I'm Barry Schneider and I co-chair the committee with Tricia Shimamura. Since we have a very long agenda this evening with 3 presentations, we'd like to ask that in the interest of involved in keeping the meeting moving, that you keep your questions and comments brief and to the point. I know you will. Thank you very much. And with that, let's get to our first presenter, our discussion with the Hospital for Special Surgery on the Kellen Tower project over the FDR Drive. Folks from the HSS, take it away.
They have a lot of people presenting, so I'm gonna take a second to unmute a few folks. So Michael, go ahead, Tricia, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, can you also just unmute Craig later? And if Chuck is here, this is a joint item with the Transportation Committee. So just in case Craig wants to add anything, I just wanna make sure he's unmuted.
Yeah, Craig,
also, if you could give me permission to share my screen as well, too.
Of course. Go ahead, you can do that now. I'm unmuting the rest of your team.
Thanks,
Michael.
Barry, would you like me to just introduce while Will unmutes everyone?
Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. Jen Wrench is here from HSS. I just want to say thank you to Barry and Tricia for inviting us to present here this evening. I am going to turn it over to my colleague, our SVP for Facilities and Construction, Michael Rawlings. Before I do that, I just wanted to do 2 quick things. One, I wanted to preface our presentation by letting you know that we're going to share as much information as we have about the scope of the work that we're doing to build the Kellen Tower and the impacts that's going to have on the surrounding area and the Esplanade. That being said, we do not have specific dates included in this presentation. We are waiting on information from the city that will allow us to share start dates and further timeframes. We are committed to coming back and sharing all of that with you as soon as we have it, but just a quick note that there are no specific dates in this presentation, and I just wanted to kind of preface with that. I know we presented, I think it was last month, to the community board and gave a kind of broad overview of this new addition to the community and what it's going to provide. In the interest of those who haven't had a chance to see that, we wanted to share a quick video with you to introduce the project. Included in this video is a great animation that kind of lays out for you how the building will be built and where it will sit. So we thought it would be a good introduction to share with you here today. And then I'll turn it over to Michael to get into the details.
Michael, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but most people can't hear the sound. Whenever you clicked share screen, did you click share computer audio?
Okay, let me do that. I apologize.
Yeah. It's okay. Just make sure you click that button. I think we were just hearing it through your speakers, which made it sound.
Okay, very good. Let me see if I can back this up just a bit.
There will be a number of key milestones in the construction of the HSS Kellen Tower. The first will come in the summer when the grounds will be prepared for foundation work. Next, building materials will arrive on site, caissons will be installed in the ground, and concrete will be poured. In the spring of 2022, barges will come up the East River to deliver the steel and other key building materials for the project. The platform that will support the Kellen Tower will then be installed, and steel beam supports will be built both above and around it. In 2023, the Kellen Tower will be topped out with the installation of the highest piece of steel in the building. We're also taking this opportunity to beautify surrounding public spaces, including the East River Esplanade, a vital waterfront resource that's open and available to all New Yorkers. And from then until our opening in 2024, the interior will be fit out with patient rooms and other key facilities to complete the HSS Kellen Tower.
So this building allows us to transform the way we deliver care to our patients, both those who live in and around New York, but also who come to us from across the country and across the world. That's why the future of musculoskeletal health is here at HSS.
Being the global leader in musculoskeletal healthcare comes with a huge responsibility, and that is to never accept the status quo and to always push the boundaries of what is possible. The HSS Kellen Tower will allow us to do that.
So thank you everyone for viewing our video. I thought it was important because it did show a lot of animation that the community can expect to see during the construction of the new HSS Kellen Tower. First of all, I understand that there's folks that have also joined this committee from transportation, and we want to talk about what folks can expect to see. So the construction of the Kellen Tower actually requires exit 13, which is the East 71st Street southbound exit closures, and the northbound lane closures during off hours and weekends for site mobilization, including excavation work and foundations on both sides of the FDR, one along the East River Esplanade and one along adjacent to the HSS Pavilion building. The northbound lane of East 71st in front of the HSS Pavilion and Bel Air buildings will also need to be closed for an extended period of time during the entire construction project for the hoist and complex throughout the entire duration of construction. So essentially, we're looking for southbound exit closures, as well as a closure of the area on the Esplanade. As far as Esplanade planning is concerned, the 71st Street pedestrian bridge access to the Esplanade will be closed for a time during the construction of the project. Currently, New York City Parks has an active construction and renovation project to improve the Esplanade, and that's ongoing from 68th Street to 70th Street, which should be completed in May of 2022. And upon completion of this project, a temporary pedestrian bridge that you see here in red will actually provide public access to the Esplanade south of 70th Street. Access to the East River Esplanade via 78th to 63rd Street pedestrian bridge will remain uninterrupted by the HSS project. The temporary pedestrian ramp will be installed going southbound on the Esplanade to provide access from 70th Street going south on the Esplanade. And then there will also be a temporary stair tower from the pedestrian bridge that will be built for our construction team to access the work site between 70th and 72nd Street. Continued planning and coordination. We're currently working with the New York City Department of Transportation on stipulations for lane closures and shutdowns. Jen Rentis had mentioned that we don't have any dates to share with you. We do expect those stipulations soon, and we'll certainly share those with the community board. Work requires extended weekend shutdowns of the FDR in the spring for the lifting of the steel deck that will be placed over the FDR, and that steel deck will actually be extending 20 feet going northbound and southbound, so that the construction of the Kellen Tower can take place as the steel is being delivered by barge and a crane, and the structure being built while cars are going underneath, both southbound and northbound. So the lane closures and the exit closures are really essential for us to build the foundation work that this steel platform will sit on, and then after we expect very few shutdowns of the FDR roadway or the exit onto 71st Street during that project. Again, sections of the Esplanade from 70th to 78th Street will be closed at different times during the construction for the Esplanade improvements. And just so you can kind of have a large view, again, this is the existing HSS that is over the FDR. You can see the pedestrian bridge that goes across on 71st Street to the Esplanade. There will be a temporary bridge that will be built along this way here, providing access southbound going on the Esplanade as soon as the work is completed between 70th and 68th Street. From the northbound area, we will be removing temporarily the existing pedestrian bridge, and we will begin work along the east side of the FDR on foundation work, as well as on the west side of the FDR along the adjacency of our existing pavilion building. And then the entire areas from here all the way up to 78th Street are included in the HSS Esplanade improvements. This is some original work that we have done on the Esplanade, and we want to continue the collaboration with the community for Esplanade improvements. The initial Esplanade improvement by HSS was done from 70th to 72nd Street. It was completed in 2018 at a cost of $1.8 million. There's ongoing coordination with New York City Parks Department on the design. There's ongoing communications between HSS and NYC Parks for the repairs of the 2 existing sinkholes, which are south of 71st Street. And we will work on making sure that those are repaired. The schedule of the construction is to be coordinated with New York City Department of Transportation on those lane and exit shutdowns, as well as the longer required shutdowns, the weekend shutdowns. And we will continue with the improvement of the Esplanade being managed by HSS from 70th Street to 78th Street. And that's in coordination with the HSS Kellen Tower. And it's budgeted at $6.65 million. So we're very excited about our improvements of the Esplanade. The overall Kellen Tower schedule, we've begun in July. We've ordered some steel. We had a groundbreaking ceremony in early October. We've received our New York City Department of Building permits for the construction, and we are just awaiting, again, stipulations from Department of Transportations. But we expect that we'll be starting soon, the foundation and building supports, that will then end with steel being delivered and the platform being installed in the spring of 2022. And then as the building is topped off, we will then beginning the outfitting of the building, and we will plan to have a ribbon cutting and ceremony by the end of 2024. I'd like to just take this opportunity to share with everyone that we have been doing outreach to everyone in the community. We encourage everyone to please visit our website at www.hss.edu/Kellen HSS Kellen Tower ASP. We have an ability for anyone who's interested to sign up for our monthly newsletter, which kind of gives a month-long look ahead, as well as talks about recent accomplishments, so that you can keep up with what's planned over the next 30 days. And more importantly, if there are any issues from the community, we've set up this email address, publicrelations@hss.edu, and we want to be able to provide quick responses to anyone that has any concerns during this project. But we want to be clear that we're being proactive and have ways of being outreach to the community and keeping everybody updated as to where we are and what they can expect. That said, that completes my portion of the presentation this evening concerning the HSS main campus and the HSS Kellen Tower, how that will impact both access to the Esplanade as well as some of the traffic things that will happen. Most of them, again, will happen on off hours and on weekends. We are doing everything that we possibly can to minimize disruption and are more than willing to answer any questions. I know that this is also centered on what the final plans are for the Esplanade, and we have our landscape architect, Mr. Andrew Moore. He's with Quinnell, Rothschild and Partners. Like I said, they have been working with HSS as well as with Parks on the plans for the Esplanade and what we will be doing for the improvements both during and after the construction of the HSS Kellen Tower.
Thank you very much.
Do we have, thank you. I think we should start with questions from the public.
Go ahead.
Will, I think I see Matt Morano first.
Matt, I'm going to mute you. Just a reminder to everybody, find the raise hand button that's under reactions at the bottom of your screen if you would like to ask a question or make a comment.
Hi, good evening. So thanks for that presentation, and it's really exciting to hear about the improvements for the Esplanade. The section right south of there looks great after the Rockefeller and the HSS improvements. I wanted to ask you. It sounds like there's going to be some pretty significant closures to through traffic for the Esplanade. And I was hoping maybe you could get a little bit of detail on exactly what's going to be closed and when. And, really the gist of my question here is that the Esplanade has had a number of closures over the last 10 years. And it's really the only safe cyclist and jogger route in the area, really east of the Hudson River. So I'm asking about the closure here without any detour being provided. If you look at the FDR right away, there's 7 lanes of car traffic, and it sounds like you're going to be letting passenger vehicles get through there pretty much unaffected. Is there some reason that there can't be considered even a Jersey barrier protected detour, like would be required for any construction site in the city actually now, that could help through traffic safely get through that Esplanade during the duration of construction?
So, one of the things that we are including in the upgrades to the Esplanade, especially along where the Con Edison building is, there's really no protection to pedestrians on the Esplanade from traffic and vehicles on the FDR. So we have been working on solutions that will provide access if needed, but will be there to help protect the public in the event that there is some type of incident while they're on the Esplanade. So that is a part of our project. I hope that answers your question, Matt.
Maybe if I can redirect here, I'm actually a little confused. Does that mean that you're going to be allowing through traffic through the construction site at the same hours that FDR traffic is allowed, or will there be closures of those areas? What closures are planned? So
closures that are planned are essentially northbound lanes on the FDR itself. There'll be the lane on the most east side of the FDR along the Esplanade. Those will be closed on the evenings so that we can do our foundation work. And then on the FDR, we are looking to close no lanes southbound, but on the evenings, close exit for 71st Street so that we can do the foundation work along in that exit where those barriers are that separate the FDR southbound exiting onto onto 71st Street.
So that's pretty minimal for a construction project this size, but what about pedestrians and cyclists going on the Esplanade itself, coming from points north and points south and trying to pass by the construction site?
So temporarily, the bridge on 71st Street will actually be closed when it's reopened. There'll be a temporary ramp so that anybody who wants to cycle and bike on the FDR will be able to go over the existing pedestrian bridge. We'll be able to take that southbound ramp and go down, and that will open in May of 2022, when the work that is ongoing from in front of the Presbyterian building from 70th Street to 68th Street is completed. So there's ongoing areas that are already interrupted. Once that work is done, then coming on 71st Street, you'll have uninterrupted access going south on the Esplanade, and then the pedestrian ramp on 78th Street will remain open during the project. There'll be an area that will be closed, around the construction activities along the FDR Esplanade here when the steel arrives and while we're doing the foundation work, but you'll have access on 78th Street going south to a certain point and then going north up into Carl Schurz Park.
Okay, so I understand you're asking through users of the Esplanade to detour from 71st Street to climb out on the bridge when it's open, go on York Avenue up to the 78th Street Bridge, and then join back on the Esplanade.
That's correct.
Can I ask what the timing of those closures is? That going to extend over the entire 3 years of the project?
No.
Secondarily, are you planning any accommodation on York? Because the traffic situation on York is pretty bad for the types of kids, children, parents you would see biking on the Esplanade in this section.
Right. So there are no plans for York Avenue at this particular point. Sections of the Esplanade from 78th to 71st Street will be closed at certain points during the project. And until we have those stipulation dates from DOT, we really can't comment and give specific information as to when sections of the FDR Esplanade will be closed. But we will be pushing that information out. And when we have that information available, we'll be more than happy to come back to the community board.
Okay, well, that sounds like a pretty significant impact. I understand you can't set the exact dates, but if you go to your 8th slide there, it looks to me like you have the staging of the construction there. Are you expecting 2 slides after this? Are you expecting the Esplanade closure between 71st and 78 to extend through all of these phases, or is it limited just maybe to some of the support phases early on?
No, it's really limited to a lot of the foundation and building support phases, as well as to the work that's going to happen on the Esplanade to improve and make those improvements.
And so once you've got steel for the first couple floors in, you're not going to close the Esplanade until it tops out, or are you going to keep it closed until all the steel's in?
Once we get the foundations in and that steel support up, we will then reopen sections of the Esplanade. So the Esplanade is not going to be closed during the entire length of the project.
I understand. That's helpful to know.
But there will be sections of the Esplanade that will be closed during the project so that we can do the beautification and the upgrades.
I understand. And I guess maybe the last question, if I'm not overstaying my welcome, I actually just took the ramp from 71st Street, the existing ramp, today, the other day, and it's kind of a mess, right? Because you got FDR traffic coming off, you got people coming into the hospital, turning around. I mean, there's a huge amount of car traffic. Bikes are sort of directed onto the sidewalk. It's not really clear if you're heading towards the Esplanade what you're supposed to do. The bridge is narrow. What are the, you're basically going to be redoing that whole area. I mean, is there some sort of a plan for sort of organizing traffic and making it reasonable for people to access that bridge when this is all said and done?
So we do have currently between right at when you exit on 71st Street, we do have security that helps to direct traffic there. There is a sidewalk going from York that goes right to the bridge. We also do have NYPD and their traffic control agents that help to take care of, make sure cars are stopping, make sure, that pedestrians are crossing. So, I think there's quite a bit of effort there to make sure that the area is safe.
Well, thank you, Michael, for your information, and thanks to the community board for giving me the time. I would ask the board members really to consider, what can be done long term. There's a huge number of closures on the Esplanade, stretching down from downtown all the way up to Harlem, and they never seem to be coordinated, as everybody knows. It would be really nice to have some sort of a detour other than just throwing people out onto York, basically, which is just a total scrum at this point. And I think the community board might be able to put some energy towards getting the agencies in the state. I know it's a complicated issue, but I think a lot of people would appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Matt. I have a question for Jen. Jen, while there's a joint meeting with Parks and Transportation, I'd like to hear more about your plans for the Esplanade improvement from 70th to 78th Street. Can you tell us when you can come back on that, or can you?
No, we can do it right now, Barry. We have Andrew Moore here, and can turn it over to him, and he can tell you all about the plans for the Esplanade itself.
Please, thank you.
Okay.
Will, could I share the screen?
Oh yeah, you just need to, there you go. We
Okay.
just needed the other one to go away. So you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Great. So thank you for allowing me to come and give you an update on this. As Michael said, we worked with HSS and the Parks Department on the HSS first phase of Esplanade improvements from 70th to 72nd Street. And we started designing this section from 72nd to 78th a while ago, and started coordinating with Parks, and then the pandemic and the lockdown kind of put everything on hiatus for more than a year. So this presentation I'm showing you has been reviewed and was approved by the Parks Capital people, but it actually hasn't been updated for a year. So let's see here. So the site, from 72nd to 78th Street. So it picks up where there's a narrow portion of the Esplanade where the improvements, first phase improvements ended, and it'll go up to the pedestrian overpass that's up by John Jay Park at 78th Street. As I'm sure you know, these are photographs of the existing conditions. There's some drainage problems. There's some paving issues. The area where it goes past the Con Ed building is quite narrow, but there's not a lot we can do about it because we're between a rock and a hard place there. And so we'll improve the pavement and try and improve the signage and allow people to go through safely. Once you get past that, it widens up again. There's actually areas that have some areas of grass, some existing trees, which gives us a little more leeway of what we can do. And we'll continue all the way up to this pedestrian bridge. You can see the view from the south and then what it looks like under the pedestrian bridge. The plans that we've developed with Parks is really with the idea to extend the kind of consistency of materials and the feel of the Esplanade, really all the way from 60th Street past Rockefeller and the part of the Hospital for Special Surgery, and then up to 78th Street. So it'll have a similar vocabulary with the paving materials, the kind of furnishings, which I'll show you in a moment, that we're anticipating at this time. So where we're picking up here, we have a little area of green space. This little triangle is similar to the existing triangle, but we'll redo that. And where there's adequate soil depth, we can put trees in here. Past the Con Ed building, as I mentioned, it's quite narrow. At the pinch point, it's a little over 8 feet, and most of it's around 12 feet. But because of the building and the Jersey barriers, it feels kind of tight. Those red dash lines, we've also been having conversations with DOT, and what they're requesting right now, it's just literally a chain that stretches from one side of the opening to the other. There's really no barrier at all for safety. And what DOT wants to see and that we're proposing to provide are movable barriers similar to the Con Ed facility down near 14th Street, if you know that one. It kind of looks like a Jersey barrier made out of steel, but it's actually movable. So the times when Con Ed needs to get into their building, they can move them out of the way and access that. And the rest of the time, it provides safety for the cars and for the people on the Esplanade. The image on the top here is when we get past the Con Ed building, where it's a little bit wider. We're showing some places where people can kind of get next to the railing and sit. That's a little protected from the bicycles and runners, and likewise can go on the east side of, the west side of the path, where there's various kinds of sitting areas and places for people to relax out of the flow of the bikes and runners. And then as we move up, this gray block is the ramp of the pedestrian overpass. And we continue the same vocabulary to where the actual bridge goes over. So again, curbs, plantings, and trees within there. What we've worked out with the Parks Department is using their typical materials that are consistent throughout the whole Esplanade. There's these, the World's Fair benches, the 1964 World's Fair benches, the B poles. These lounge chairs are ones that my office designed for the Rockaways that Parks Department has accepted. The paving will be the hex block paving in a pattern similar to this. And that's a real, maybe the biggest component of extending the kind of vocabulary of the Esplanade in this area and making it really feel like it's one place. We have the little rails to protect the planting. The bow railing along the edge will be cleaned up and repaired and painted. And the places where we're off of the main travel, we're looking to have granite block paving, but with smooth tops and tight joints so that they're ADA accessible. The kind of planting materials that we're proposing, all of these, there's a lot of native species, not 100%, but all of them are ones that have proven to be durable in this location. As you know, the East River is an arm of the sea. It's saline, and there's spray and flooding that comes up on the Esplanade. And these plants are all really tough ones that can take that sort of periodic inundation. And the understory underneath the trees, we're proposing some ornamental grasses and then some perennials in places too, where to provide color and texture to enhance the whole experience. So that's in a very quick nutshell, that's where we are on the Esplanade. This is our first time showing you this. We haven't been to PDC yet. If there are major changes to the plans, we'd have to go back to Parks to get their approval again, but that's where we stand right now. The agreement that we have is after the schematics are approved by PDC, we'll start doing construction drawings. We have to run them by Parks at 80% and when they're final, and then back again to PDC before it can be let out to bid and the construction start.
Andrew, do you know when you're going to the PDC?
Well, it depends on what the comments are here tonight, frankly. And I mean, we anticipate it'll probably be within the next couple of months. There's no, Parks and DOT have conceptually signed off on this, and it's at the schematic level. So it's still kind of early in the process.
Thank you. Any questions?
We have other questions from the public? And then questions from committee members?
Oh, Liz. Lowell.
As Lowell's unmuting, I'll just remind everybody that if you would like to participate, just find the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and press the raise hand button there.
Hi, back in 2013-14, when Rockefeller University built the over the FDR, they agreed to put in sound walls. They were 8-foot sound walls because when on the Esplanade, when you're in the area now of the hospital where there are no sound walls, it's quite deafening. To have those sound walls would make the experience on the Esplanade quieter, much quieter. So we would hope that sound walls would be part of your project. At least I would. And also, Health and Hospitals, they have a project labor agreement where they put union labor work, and they also have local hiring goals and minority and women contractor goals. We would hope that you would also use this PLA so that workers are protected, wages are secure, and that there's local hiring for our people in NYCHA projects that get a start with the apprenticeships. That would be great if you could manage to get those two facets into the plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Lowell. I think we have we had a member of the public. We had Michael Merrick, but I don't see his hand anymore. So maybe his question has been answered.
I see Judy Schneider, a member of the public, has her hand raised.
Okay. Go ahead, Judy.
Just really quickly, Michael, I unmuted you. Did you have a question?
I just was wondering, I remember this project from a little while ago. Is there an indication anywhere except for the color of the pavers that the bikes go in one place and people go in another, so that there's no accidents?
Yeah, on the first phase, we did put the labeling on the pavement in where you came into there in a few places to try and clarify and make it safe. And I anticipate that'll probably happen here as well. But we're not planning on putting like bike path striping on.
No, of course not. No.
Esplanade.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Judy?
Yeah, two questions. One, I'm not sure that I heard you, Michael, correctly. Did you say at some point that 71st Street going down to the river was going to be closed, or did I mishear you in the beginning?
No, I think you heard me correctly. Currently, there's work that's going on the Esplanade from 70th Street to 68th Street. That is a separate NYC Parks project. So when we go to start our excavation work for the HSS Kellen Tower, that's work that's going to be done north of 71st Street. That bridge will be closed until we anticipate May of 2022 when NYC Parks reopens that area when they're finished with their project, and we have the temporary bridge in.
Now, I was talking about the street itself.
Oh, no, 71st Street, no, there'll be one lane on 71st Street that will be closed. It'll be the northbound lane when you exit the FDR Drive. That's right in front of the HSS Kellen Tower.
Yeah, because I was wondering how you would get out from the hospital if you closed 71st.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so I didn't understand that. The other thing is the work, the picture that we're looking at, the work on the Esplanade from 71st Street up. Will this work on the improvement of the Esplanade itself start after the tower is near completion? You're not going to start working on that until the tower is...
We would like to make improvements on the Esplanade as soon as possible, but those are going to have to be coordinated with the New York City Parks Department. So, for instance, Andrew explained the entire scope of work that will happen from 78th Street south to 71st Street. I would like to, if at all possible, work to expedite some of that work. So maybe sections of the Esplanade would be closed from 78th to, or working north from 71st Street, so that when the Kellen Tower is actually done, that a lot of the work on the Esplanade would be done. But that's based on Parks approval, as well as the other city approvals that need to be done.
Okay, and I assume that includes the problem with the sinkholes.
That's correct. The sinkholes is another issue that we've been working with New York City Parks on, and obviously need to be corrected before the area is opened back up again.
And just one last question. Did you give us, or do you have an estimated cost for the improvements for the Esplanade?
Yeah, it's over $6.5 million. It's budgeted about $6.65 million.
Thank you.
Okay. I see Charles Whitman. Charles Whitman has his hand up. Charlie?
I just had a quick question on the pinch point. From a safety point of view, as it becomes more attractive and more people use that area, and you have the joggers, the walkers, and the bicyclists, is anything been done to look at that funnel point where everyone funnels into the pinch point, and to make sure that you make it as safe as possible, so when everybody's merging, you're not surprised by somebody who's coming in on a bike too fast and there's a jogger coming the other way and so on. I don't know if there's anything can be done on either end, but it's more in terms of the funnel going in. I don't know if there's anything that can be done to make that a bit safer.
Probably the best thing is we'll have signage about people, which side they should go on and be entering that slowly. I don't know if you're familiar with the section of the Con Ed downtown, but there's signage that tells people to walk. It's actually much narrower than this. It's maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. Like 2 bicycles really can't pass each other at the same time. And they handle it with signage, and honestly, a lot of people ignore it anyway. But I think that's probably the best thing. We'll have signage and markings in the pavement to try and make sure it's safe for people to get through that, especially that pinch point critical area.
But is there, if I'm correct, that's almost like a 90-degree angle when the walls come in and you go into the pinch point. Is there any way of softening that, if you will, to make it more visible as you're going in and out?
Well, see, this is kind of the pinch point there.
Yeah.
And people are coming around the corner. So I think having, signage as you enter it and signage for the people coming away as they're coming along, so that people are prepared for exactly what you're describing.
On the other end, I'm sorry, it makes sense on this end. Does it make the same sense on the other?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a similar situation. The building's in a similar kind of configuration. It's still, this is 10 to 12 feet wide, so it's not as bad as the one downtown.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Greg? Greg?
Hi, thank you, Barry. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a number of transportation questions. First, if you could just remind everyone, because I believe you mentioned this when you presented to the full board, but this project will not result in any increases to patient capacity, correct?
No, it will not.
What about staffing?
Staffing capacity?
Or staffing needs or number of employees?
Well, we probably will have increases in staffing as we grow some of the programs in the new space and program. But one of the things that I failed to mention was that there will also be a bridge, an enclosed pedestrian bridge that will connect the 3rd floor of the east wing of the main hospital building to the new HSS Kellen Tower. And so, this building actually will not have a front entrance or a door. The main access to this building will be from the hospital, from the main hospital on the 3rd floor, as well as connected on multiple floors to the existing pavilion building.
Okay, thank you. So, I guess some of my questions are resulting from what I think is a lack of clarity in terms of how you presented what the impending closures and impacts on the FDR Drive are going to be. Can you please specify to the fullest extent possible what you mean by off hours being impacted? Sure. We're talking about closures?
Sure. So again, just to try to be clear, on the northbound of the FDR, there'll be a lane closure along the Esplanade that'll allow us to access the Esplanade while we bring equipment in to do excavation and foundation work.
Right.
On the southbound lane, all right, there'll be lane closures of the 71st Street exit, all right, so that we can do the same along the existing pavilion building where we will be doing foundation work. Those shutdowns will be scheduled with DOT stipulations, and work orders will be issued by the building department for off hours. So that is work in probably 11:30 p.m. till 6:30 a.m. And that work will take a certain period of time. Once those foundations are completed, then we will have some weekend shutdowns that will probably occur sometime on Friday evening till Sunday afternoon, where the barge will come in and they will unload the steel platform that will be placed over the foundations. And then once that work is completed, then cars can continue to go underneath the FDR while the building is constructed above that steel platform.
Right. And how many weekends approximately do you anticipate this will require?
I believe 2 to 3 weekends. One to install the steel deck, and then another weekend or two to erect the first few floors of the Kellen Tower, which are going to be delivered prefabricated. So the steel will already be in place, and they'll stack that on top of the steel deck, and then be able to deliver and install the rest of the steel going up. And that will happen, again, sometime in the spring of 2022.
And there'll be plenty of advance notice.
Absolutely. As soon as we know, we'll be posting information to our website, and we will include those dates and those schedules in our 30-day look-aheads. And again, we encourage everyone to please reach out and to sign up on our website for the 30-day notices that'll be emailed out to everyone. And also, if you have any questions concerning any of those notices, to please send us an email with the email address that we set up, publicrelations.hss.edu.
And that shutdowns in both directions, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so that would entail detours between 59th and 96th Street, I take it.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you keep mentioning the lane closures at 71st Street at the exit. What about vehicles entering the FDR Drive via 73rd Street, since they essentially use the same roadway over there between 71st and 73rd Streets? So
people on entering the FDR going southbound on 73rd Street during the evenings would not be allowed to do that while that lane is shut down. Once the work is completed and the foundations are in, and we've delivered the steel on top, you would have access going southbound on 73rd Street.
All right, but again, that will be only evenings between 11:30-ish and 6:30 a.m.-ish.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for those clarifications. Now, in terms of, I think I have everything. I appreciate your comments regarding trying to expedite the project, and I want to thank, I want to thank the speaker before. I think it was Matthew, who asked a really great series of questions regarding the access to the Esplanade and emphasizing the real importance of trying to maintain throughput on the Esplanade for as long as possible, and to try to prevent any additional closures beyond what's absolutely needed, because I think this whole community, as much as we recognize the importance of the work being done and appreciate that after a long time we're finally going to see improvements, it's just beyond frustrating that we're facing all these closures and blockages for all this time. So I guess my question in this case is, so when do you anticipate the closure at 71st Street beginning? I know you said that the temporary bridge will be up by May of 2022, but when will that work begin?
The pedestrian bridge on 71st Street going onto the Esplanade will likely be closed very shortly after we receive stipulations and begin mobilizing the site for the excavation work. And then we'll reopen again on as soon as the southbound work from 70th to 68th Street has been completed.
Which is expected in May 2022?
That's correct. If you go to the NYC Parks Department, they estimate May of 2022.
And when do you think you're going to have a notice to proceed or be able to begin site mobilization?
We have been waiting patiently. It could be as early as next week, but again, it's something that we do not have full control over.
Will there be any? Will there be any time between the time that you're able to move forward and when the bridge begins to be shut down, will the community have, how long in advance will the community know that the bridge is about to be closed for until May?
So we can send in a notification as soon as we have all the stipulations from DOT to the community board, and we will try to get that information out as quickly as possible using that automatic email sign up. We also are required to post signage that meets the Parks Department, so it will take a little bit of time.
Okay, but we will have some advance notice.
Some advance notice, Craig, but I can't promise you, 2 weeks or a month or anything like that.
All right, and I'll just conclude by saying that I just will urge you to the fullest extent possible to see what can be done working with Parks and DOT to try to allow for access to be returned as quickly as possible, and doing whatever you can to start the work on between 71st and 78th Street as soon as possible, because if one portion is going to be out, you might as well try to get as much done as possible during that time, and then the sooner you can restore full access and through access, connecting the north and south of the site, I think the whole community would be greatly appreciative and benefit from that. So
absolutely. And just to reiterate, Andrew went into details about the approval process. It looks like we've got schematic design approval from Parks. We need to get further approvals, and then when we get to a certain design of the construction documents completed, they also have to go for approvals. Once we have all of those approvals in place, we're more than willing to come back to the community board and discuss how we can go about doing the final work on the Kellen Tower and getting the work done at the Esplanade as expeditiously as possible.
All right. Thank you very much.
I know I'm next, but I'm going to give it to Stacy first. Stacy, go ahead.
Hi. So my question is for Andrew. Beautiful landscape design, lots of greenery. 2 questions. 1, who is responsible for maintaining that? And 2, are you including an irrigation system?
Yeah, there's a fully automatic irrigation system that's being planned, as was installed at the section from 70th to 72nd. There's also some ground hydrants or hose bibs for maintenance as well. And Michael, you may correct me, but I believe it's HSS's obligation to maintain the landscape.
That is yet to be determined yet. We can certainly discuss that. I know that this is a space for public benefit. I'm very familiar with the Esplanade. I live on 90th Street. I'm in Carl Schurz Park once or twice a week and walk down to 78th Street or 71st Street pedestrian bridge. I enjoy it. I want to see it be a benefit to our community. But we will do my understanding is that we will continue to do the landscaping from 70th to 72nd Street.
Thank you.
So a couple additional questions. Can you go back to the timeline or the phase presentation?
Sure. There you go, Trish.
Thank you. And so I think I understand broadly and generally what the southbound ramp and access will be. I understand that as soon as possible, you guys will be closing down that ramp entirely. I understand that you will be reopening it, going just southbound towards the Alice Aycock Pavilion, probably May 2022. But I don't understand, to go back to the question from the public, I don't understand when you, so I assume that means that like any day now, frankly, between now and 2 weeks from now or a month from now, that our access northbound on the 71st Street ramp will be taken away from us. But I don't understand when it's going to come back. And I don't understand, I don't understand when you were saying like, oh, some portions will be open or closed. I'm not sure what that really means. And I think I understand completely where we are with the southbound, but I was hoping that you can spend more time describing how and when we'll get northbound access back.
Okay, so just taking a look at the schedule again, let's assume that the groundbreaking is very soon. The northbound section and southbound section would be closed on the 71st Street pedestrian bridge. During that time, we would be working on foundations and supports until the spring. In the spring, around May 2022, Parks Department will complete their project from 68th to 70th, and will then provide southbound access on the temporary pedestrian bridge that HSS will be building. The northbound access will remain closed during the steel platform and steel delivery installation that will be happening until at least the building is topped off at the end of 2023. And then at 2023, then we'll be able to clean up that whole Esplanade area and begin working on the Esplanade improvements. If we are able to get approvals, we may, in coordination and collaboration with Parks, decide, instead of going from southbound to northbound, all right, of the Esplanade improvements, we may, if it makes sense, and I'm not committing to this, maybe go and start 78th Street earlier and work from 78th Street south, all right, to 71st Street. And when that work is going to happen, I just don't have the dates yet because we still need the approvals from Parks.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Tricia?
Yes, that makes sense. My fear is that right now, without that clarity, it sounds like we could be losing northbound access for the next 2 years, and like getting the beautification pieces of it at the very end. But for the most part, we lose that because of you're building your building, and we don't have access to that. And this public speaker is right. It's a 71st Street is a tough street anyways, and then to get all the way over back onto the Esplanade at 78th, that's I would wager that's almost half a mile, if not more, than in terms of that area. So I guess that's concerning, one, but also I'm wondering if there's any, and I'm assuming, I mean, is there any way is there any possibility of having some sort of small, narrow, temporary pathway through this on the Esplanade while this is going on up until, have you guys considered giving us 6 feet of the Esplanade to squeeze by on? That happens, as you referenced 90th Street, that happens up there at 117th Street, and that area, there are these tiny paths that are not obviously a full fix, but give people a through access. Right.
So I think HSS would like to move this project along as quickly as possible. I would like to be able to commit to being able to tell you exactly what the schedules are for the shutdowns of the Esplanade for the work from 71st Street to 78th Street. At this time, I cannot, but I can certainly understand that the community would like to limit the length of impact of having 71st Street being closed for the construction of the Esplanade, and then try to minimize the impact of the beautification of the Esplanade. So whether or not it be done in multiple phases, or whether or not we could do the west side of the Esplanade and then come back and do the east side while access was maintained, is something that I just cannot comment on, but certainly we'll take back and we'll work with Andrew if there's a way of staging this, or work with New York City Parks Department on the best way to get the job done with the minimal disruption to the Esplanade for the community.
On that note, and thank you. On that note, you've used the phrase like work with or ongoing communications with parks for repairs and that sort of thing. And even when Judy asked it before, I would like to just better understand what that actually means. Are you paying for those sinkhole repairs on 71st Street? Are you in negotiation with Parks to do that? Because last I heard from Parks, they didn't have the budget to repair those sinkholes, nor do we know how bad the damage is over there. Can you clarify what's actually happening with those two sinkholes in this area?
Certainly. So first of all, after our community full board meeting at the end of September, and you brought up the sinkholes and the graffiti and some of the issues out there, we originally reached out to Parks to have the conversation. We noticed that they have, installed fences up around the sinkholes. Yes. For public safety, and I reached out to them asking what their plan was to repair those. I even made a suggestion and a recommendation that since there was ongoing work on the Esplanade, doing restoration work, would they consider reaching out to the contractor who's already been awarded the work on 68th Street to 70th Street. They forwarded that email on. I have not since heard anything back from them. But regardless, the sinkholes will have to be repaired. We will work with Parks and continue to press the issue on your behalf.
Okay. Thank you. I am not too reassured by that, just because it doesn't sound like anybody has a real plan yet for how that's going to get fixed. I assume that it has to get done, because I assume you can't build a whole building on top of a crumbling Esplanade. So somebody's going to have to do it, but I would love to better understand where that's coming from. And the same thing goes with maintenance, frankly. We've been battling that Con Ed site at least 12 years, which is how long I've known this Esplanade. And so to not understand, and it's always been a question of water, it's always been a question of maintenance, it's always been a question of how deep you can go. Andrew, to hear that you may put a tree there is fascinating, because I have heard that they couldn't even pave over it for other reasons. So I'm very interested in I mean, if that's great, then great. But I don't, it's not clear to me that you guys that Parks, or there's a true communication here with the Parks Department on this. So I don't know if that means that you guys come back, or I was looking to see if somebody from Parks is here. But Barry, I don't see our new representative.
No, she's not there
yet. So it's just not super clear to me what level of coordination that's happening there is. And then finally, when
Leslie,
it comes,
sorry to interrupt you, Tricia, but Leslie Peoples said that she could answer that question.
Oh, Leslie's here. I'm sorry.
Or at least respond. Oh, I just muted her again. Sorry about that, Leslie.
Oh, yes.
Leslie, go ahead and unmute again. I'm sorry about that.
I'm here. Hi, Trish. We will make sure that this is coordinated. I don't know if my camera's working. We will make sure that this is coordinated. As you said, we don't have funding for it right now. So we will.
Okay. Yeah, this is all.
For the funding, the suggestion is great for the contractor that's doing work now, or the contract that's going to be done on the future Esplanade. Either one of those contracts could take it on, as long as we can find the funding to do it. So we will look for that. We will get back to you on that. Okay. But rest assured, we will coordinate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The only other piece, Mr. Moore, that I wanted to add to your, frankly, I think it's beautiful. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. The two unifying factors of this Esplanade, the thing that just keeps it feeling like one contiguous place, are the hexagonal pavers and the bow railing. Those are the two things that are consistent. I wish that we had more. The Friends of the East River Esplanade always talk about ways to build a very special and engaging place, and your landscape is beautiful. The one thing that we're really struggling with, though, on 71st Street is that there's a ton of garbage there, and the trash can there is overflowing constantly. I myself have emptied it out with Stacy Pappas no less than 5 different times. It's because, frankly, of the hospital workers that go and visitors to, and like patients and their visitors who go and sit there, maybe on their lunch breaks and that sort of thing. I think it's wonderful, and I think everybody should use the Esplanade, but I think that we should be creatively thinking about how we deal with our garbage in this area, particularly if you have more staffers at these buildings. And if you make a more engaging area, I hope that more people come to use it, but then you're going to have to deal with more garbage. So I would ask that you take a look at trash cans and how we are supposed to deal with the garbage issue along this area. And I also ask that you coordinate with Parks, because Parks has historically had a real problem with this spot, because it's very hard to get their workers to get there and clean those garbage cans. So that's why Stacy and I always clean 71st Street, because that one never gets filled, never gets really cleaned in a timely way. So if you can take a look at the garbage, that would be great. I too often have seen the garbage cans, and because the garbage cans are right next to the railing, I see literally bags of feces and old food and things like that falling into the East River all the time. So if you can think about placement and types of garbage removal and that sort of thing, it would be a real service to this neighborhood and to this park.
Okay, thank you, definitely.
Thank you. I see no more hands, but just one last comment. I want to thank the people from HSS and their architect for their presentation this evening. We will be seeing much more of you. Please keep us in mind. Please send the information to the board office on any closings or any changes that are occurring. And we'll look forward to seeing you early in the new year with an update on this project.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Tricia. And you have our commitment to continue coordinating and collaborating and communicating with the community board on this project.
Terrific. Thanks so very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to move the agenda. The next item is the presentation of a plan for the Asphalt Green Tower, cooling tower. The architect is Zakorsky and Associates. Are they here to make a presentation?
Yes, we are.
Good.
Screen?
Yeah, you can share.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Popkin. I work for Zakorsky and Associates, and I've been working with Asphalt Green, trying to help them resolve a problem that they have in their building, which I'll go through. All right, so I'm assuming everybody knows Asphalt Green and the building and what it does and what it contributes to the community of children and people, not only the park, but obviously the building itself. It's a very successful public, not public building. It's really quite exciting to see it before the city shut down. It was such a treat. All right, so the building, we're putting in replacing an existing cooling tower that's in the building, and the cooling tower is specifically for the air conditioning equipment that's part of the pool area, the natorium itself. Budget's about $450,000. We're replacing the cooling tower, and we're adding a visual screen and acoustic screen around it. Everybody knows, I think, where it is. It's on the corner of York and 91st is the main entrance. There's the playground is in front. Sometimes the gates open from York. Lately, it's actually been mostly open from 91st. There is like a 2.5-story structure on the northwest corner of the building, which holds its mechanical spaces and the pool, a small training pool is on the first floor. This is a plan of where the cooling tower and the mechanical space is on the second floor. It's in yellow here. You can see it in this photo. It was kind of wedged into this building back when it was originally designed. It is not functional, not energy efficient, and needs to be replaced due to the caustic, as you can imagine, mechanical equipment, even stainless steel, over since 1992, it just deteriorates and ages. Oh, weird. All right, so this is just some general photos, looking from the outside, from the park of the building, the 4.5-story building and a 2-story mechanical area. And this is the proposed, is to put the cooling tower up here, give it some air, give it some energy efficiency, and it gives you a feel for what it looks like. This is kind of gives you the scale of the park and the scale of the cooling tower. And lastly, this is just a sample, excuse me, guys, we're in America. The material around the cooling tower will be perforated metal, pretty much matches the brickwork. It's perforated because we need some air around it. But this is an actual sample and a mock-up of the actual grill. And this is the rooftop plan to enclose the cooling tower, which obviously you can't really see it from the street until it's tall enough. It's about, the panels are about 10 feet high and it's about 14 feet wide is the box. And this kind of gives you the scale of the proposed cooling tower. The cooling tower will be colored and painted the color of the perforated metal and the grill work. So we really are trying to get this camouflaged to make this disappear as much as possible. And then this is kind of a final mock-up. This is kind of where it would be. Again, this is the perforations, and this is actually kind of in situ, in place. These two on the left. Obviously, I can't get it up 14 feet in the air, but I did my best. So I know that was brief. Your last presentation was pretty intense, but please, if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer any questions to make sure that this is as clear to everybody as possible.
Jason, thank you very much for that expedited presentation. I feel much cooler now than I did before. Any members of the public with some questions? I have one or two we'll reserve. Oh, Mrs. Schneider, I see, has a question.
Barry, before we get to Judy, sorry, Judy, just a quick question for Jason or for you, Barry. This presentation, is this informational, or are you looking for a resolution from our committee tonight on this?
That was one of my questions.
We are looking for resolution tonight.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Barry. Thanks, Judy. Go ahead.
Well, I'll start off by saying move to approve, and if it's seconded, I'd love to speak to it.
It would help if it was a resolution you were moving to approve, Mr.
Approve, yes, move to approve the project.
May I suggest you put the resolution on?
Oh, a resolution to approve the project. Sorry.
Is there a second?
Rebecca Dengor.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure that I understand how this will affect. Do you lift this thing up onto the roof? What's happening on the ground when you're installing this tank?
Actually, it's a cooling tower. It's a big air conditioning unit, for lack of a better word.
Right.
The way it's going to be installed is we're not going to pick it. The trees are in the way. We don't want to damage the trees. It's going to come in parts and get hoisted up through the building is how it's going to come. So it's not going to be a giant pick. We're trying to be very conscious of the park and not to disturb the park, either to shut it down or to have a big crane in the way. And either way, the only place really to put the crane would be at the entrance to the FDR drive. And there's no reason to do that. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible.
So the only thing we'll have is some trucks delivering equipment to the building, and then it'll be brought up inside. Is that
And
correct?
yes,
That's
the
correct.
equipment,
Thank you.
steel, there'll be, yes.
Thank you.
Lowell?
Lowell, you can unmute.
One quick question. Is this publicly funded with taxpayer money, or is this used with the
No.
proceeds that? Okay, thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Does anyone want to?
I would second it.
Thank you, Lowell.
I
Barry,
hope
can
I
I
wasn't
ask
too
a-
quick there. I apologize.
You were well
Thank you
timed.
for being quick.
Barry, can I ask a quick question?
Oh,
Who is
sure.
you asked for a resolution. Who is that resolution supposed to go to? Is that to the Public Design Commission, or is that to the Parks Commissioner, or who?
Jason, can you answer that question?
We need approval from CB8 for the Parks Department to approve the project, so we can go to the Department of Buildings.
Okay.
With the new DOB now, believe it or not, I can't even get this into the Department of Buildings without approval from your committee, and then the Parks approves it, and then I can go into the Department of Buildings.
Okay.
All right, fine. If this resolution is approved, it'll then be go to the full board meeting on the 17th, and at that time it becomes a motion representing the community board that can go forward to the Parks Department.
Great.
Now I'm looking for someone to call the question.
Felice's hand.
Okay.
I have just one quick question before I call the question. Could you just, you said you were bringing the parts in from the building. Can you just explain that quickly?
They're just big boxes. Yeah, Mark, you want to respond?
Sure. Good evening. This is Mark from Zubatkin. We're the owner rep and organizing the project. Basically, in order to avoid any crane, cooling tower is going to be broken down at the factory into the box, and they're going to be coming into the crate, going through the staircase that you see that the gentleman is holding the sample. That staircase is basically going right to the second floor mechanical room, and we're going to be basically assembling, bringing the parts and the crate through that hallway into the mechanical room, and then taking it up to the roof through the opening that it's at the top of the mechanical room to the roof area. So in a sense, there is no interaction between this moving the cooling tower and the park area where the children are playing.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call the question. I appreciate your answer.
All in favor of calling the question? Anyone opposed to calling the question?
I second officially, I guess.
Okay, good. The question's been called.
Can we
go, sir.
Can you do me a favor and just read, because I'm just taking notes here. Can you do me a favor and read to me the members?
Of course, yeah.
Go ahead.
So the members in attendance right now: Tricia Shimamura, Barry Schneider, Craig Lader, Felice Farber, Irma Torres is a public member, Judy Schneider, public member, Lowell Barton, Rami Siegel, Rebecca Dangor, and Sandrea Coleman. Did I miss anyone? If so, please raise your hand very quickly. Doesn't look like.
If you're voting no, abstain or not voting for cause, please raise your hand.
Great.
Seeing no hands, the motion is approved unanimously. It'll go to the full board for the full board vote later this month. Thank you very much for that sparkling presentation.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your time, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation by the Central Park Conservancy regarding the restoration of the Kinderberg Chess and Checkers House. Someone here from the Conservancy?
Yeah, Lane.
Lane?
Who else is?
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Hi. Hi, everybody. So I am here with Chris Nolan, who's the chief landscape architect for the park, and Denise Keaveney, who is our head of our architecture studio. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Chris, if you're ready to share your screen and give a very brief presentation, because I know you guys have had a long attendance tonight, on the Kinderberg and Chess Checkers House in Central Park.
Second, here we go. Good evening, everybody. I'll try to be brief, and we have an exciting project down in the south end of the park in an area referred to as the Children's District. It's the Kinderberg. We're doing a restoration of a missing historic, park's largest rustic structure. We're creating a public restroom in the Chess and Checkers Pavilion, and we're making it all accessible. And let me run you through it. This is the site. It's just south of the 65th Street Transversal. If you're familiar with the park where the dairy is, it's just kind of up on this large rock outcrop. It's and our project actually connects some work we've been doing in accessibility, creating accessible access to the dairy. Our work will make the public restroom that we're building, the Kinderberg, and the Chess and Checkers Pavilion all accessible. A little bit of history. I'll move through this very quickly. It is part of an area that was historically known as the the Children's District, which included what was referred to as the playground, which is a large ball field, which has become Heckscher Playground and the Heckscher Ball Fields. The Kinderberg is right here. It was built on top of the rock outcrop, a high point, and as I mentioned, it's the park's largest rustic structure. Here was the dairy. There was also historically a children's cottage, which was a restroom, which had been lost to time. The area does not have any public restrooms except over here at the playground. They're much needed in the area, and the opportunity to recreate this historic element. This is a stereo view from about 1870 of what the rustic structure was. As I mentioned, it was the park's largest rustic structure up on this high point. And as you can see, it was a very intricate structure inside with benches, and it was essentially built as this little respite for caregivers and young children to kind of escape the activity of what was going on throughout the rest of the park. As the park kind of moved through history, the rustic structure existed in some form sometime between, this is a 1930s aerial view. You get a sense of, this is the carousel. It was a wood carousel structure at that time. The Kinderberg was here. This is in and around the area where the children's project had been lost. And you get a sense of the dairy. This is actually where Woolman Rink, this lobe of the lake, was filled in to construct Woolman Rink in the 1950s. About 1944, so sometime around 1944, the rustic structure was removed and it was just a big open paved area. And then in the 1950s, early 1950s, the structure was replaced with what was known as the Chess and Checkers House. It actually was built at the same time. It's almost exactly the same design as the Carousel building, which was built again in the 1950s and replaced the wood one. And you get a sense of the important relationship. This beautiful rock outcrop was built on top. The historic footprint of what the Kinderberg was has remained the same. That wall is original in extent, still there. And the relationship between the dairy and this, there's no public restrooms in the dairy. So our project will actually create public restrooms here and recreate this rustic structure. Existing conditions. In the mid-1980s, the Conservancy built a kind of dimensional lumber pergola to kind of ground what was once historically there. You get a sense of the rustic wall, which was original, bluestone copings. Our work will restore all that. And then the pavilion, which is built inside. And the idea is to basically envelop the existing structure, convert a portion of the interior space into a public restroom in the historic structure. The paving around it is in terrible shape. The benches and Chess and Checkers tables are all kind of cracked and kind of beyond their useful life, and the dimensional lumber pergola is actually kind of at this point deteriorating to the point that it needs to be completely replaced, and presents the opportunity to now recreate it with a rustic structure. The facility itself, roof needs to be replaced. It's a slate roof. The doors and windows will be replaced in kind. The masonry will be cleaned. It'll essentially look a lot like it does today from the outside, except be kind of grounded in this rustic structure. The doors and windows will go back without the grates. The interior space, we do some programming up there. It has not been a tremendously successful programming space because it's an odd shaped building. Most of the programming happens outside. People want to play some checkers outside, not be inside. Didn't have heat historically. Heat was added in the 1980s. We essentially use it to hand out chess and checkers and board games and launch tours and provide information. Singularly, the biggest question they're asked when people get in there is, where's the public restroom? And we have to give them directions over to the playground if they can find their way, and we hand out a map. As I was saying, much of the space is used outdoors. We hand out chess and checkers. We hand out other board games. People play outside in an informal way. small groups, people, and people just use the tables and the chairs to kind of relax and have lunch. We also have organized programming where we have chess masters come in on the weekends and run chess tournaments. All that programming happens outside, and all of our program will remain intact as exactly as it is today. So the proposed improvements. We have a 1866 rendering of what it was. There was in the center of it was a covered section. It was a very large rustic pergola that went out to the edge of the bluestone copings, and what it is today. There's trees that were planted sometime pre-1980. The trees will remain. We'll actually build the rustic structure around it. The rustic structure will build to support wisteria at some point in the future. Right now, it's too densely shaded. Actually won't need it, but over time, as the landscape evolves, there is the opportunity to do that. So our proposal is actually essentially to recreate this. Those of you who are familiar with the Conservancy, we have an in-house rustic crew which will do all of the kind of ornamental work on the constructing the benches and the filigree inside, the ornament inside the railings, and we'll work with a contractor to actually construct the structure. And you get a sense of our model. There'll be the same amount of chess and checkers tables. They'll be grounded in, there'll be actually more benches. Interesting thing about the benches is there will be benches that right now all the benches relate to a table. There will actually be benches on the outside. You can see the edge of it here, so you'll get views to the outside landscape, and people will still be able to play chess and checkers on inside. From a building perspective, cleaning the brick, the masonry, replacing the doors and windows in kind, steel doors, black painted. There will be no grates going back. The roof will be replaced in kind with a new slate roof, and the cupola will be replaced essentially with the same design. On the interior space, again, we will use about 2/3 of the interior space to create a public restroom, very much needed in the area. People come to the dairy and say, where's the restroom? People come to here and say, where's the restroom? So it's much needed in this area. It'll serve many people in the south end of the park. There's men's and restrooms, and we're also creating a gender neutral area. There's a bit of utility space, and on the east side of the building coming up from the stairs, will actually still be some space, access to the public restrooms, and space for us to do our programming, and it'll be staffed to hand out the board games, chess and checkers, and launch tours and provide park information. And then lastly, the key piece of this is making it all accessible. There's about a 13-foot grade change between the path here and the upper platform. And again, there's no public restrooms in here. So the idea is to create a linkage between these two. In our more recent project, site just opened up this week. The dairy is now back open to the public. We created an accessible ramp parallel to the pedestrian path going in. Here we will do the same thing. Importantly, the point of access where the steps are from an equity perspective, people with a mobility who need a mobility device will enter. The access, the kind of procession up will be from the same point, and access to the upper terrace will be at the same point. And this work was similar to what we did over at the Arsenal. A ramp will lay in, there's some constraints of the trees, but we're able to make up the 13-foot grade change with a ramp parallel to the contours, and it'll be well planted to kind of nestle it in the landscape. So some renderings. This is the site, and as I was saying, the idea is that the point of entrance to the space is here. There's a single handrail there now. Because this is a facility, there'll be additional handrails required to be compliant with the building code, and the ramp will kind of lay in. This Cercis canadensis, it's a redbud tree, will transplant, will kind of lay into this landscape here and look like this. There's a bit of guard that required because of the drop. Here is greater than 30 inches, very transparent. It's our wire mesh, similar to what we do around our playgrounds. Will just be kind of part of the handrail assembly, and only where it's needed. Again, there's 3 handrails required by code. The ramp will come in, go parallel to the contours, and be compliant. And the access point to the Kinderberg is up there, and you get a sense of what that rustic structure will look like when it's all completed. And then a view coming this way, the ramp lays in here. The construction of the ramp itself, it'll be a concrete walls clad in bluestone, kind of simple, clean, panels of bluestone will be attached to it. Handrails will cantilever off of the retaining wall, and on the leading edge, there'll be just a handrail on both sides, which is a requirement of the ramp. You get a sense of what that is. And we wanted to just finish kind of showing it actually was a project which we've done lots of projects in our years here. We've gotten like praise on this project, like there's disproportional to the actual effort in a lot of ways. The kind of improvements we can make by making the park more accessible. Park is used by people who need mobility devices, but it's widely used by people with carriages or people who just don't want to make their way down the stairs. And we like to point this out because you know, once the area is well vegetated, the ramp actually lays into the landscape, and Chess and Checkers will have a similar impact when the plantings are actually fully mature. And that's it. Project, actually, we hope to get a resolution tonight to move on in our approval process. We'll be presenting to the Landmarks Commission and ultimately to the Public Design Commission. We hope to actually have the approvals and complete the project by the end of next calendar year. And we are privately funded. We are privately funding the project through you know, to our fundraising. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Chris. I think I see Judy Schneider.
Go ahead, Judy.
Yes, I'd like to make a resolution to approve this project as presented.
Is there a second?
Rebecca Dangor.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any discussion?
Let me just give Lowell a chance to ask his question.
Certainly.
Or call the question.
Go ahead, Lowell.
I was going to call a question.
Go right ahead.
Great. Can I just ask one question before we call the question? Chris, my only, it's beautiful. As the projects, most of the projects that you guys do take on are, my only question is I noticed that I've always loved the Conservancy's efforts to renovate the structures, because I always feel like you go back to the history of what it historically was. I just noticed in this one that the pitch of the roof was a lot higher than what it originally was and what you proposed. And I was curious about the decision to go higher, if that's actually true. The kind of pitch is much taller, and like the structure itself is much taller than what the original was, which was kind of flatter and more wide. And if there was a reason why you decided to that height.
You're referring to the rustic structure? Or,
yeah, the rustic structure.
Yeah. It's actually not in our intent. I mean, the only image, it is our intent to be faithful to that sketch. That's all we have in terms of the height of the rustic structure should be, I'd have to maybe go back to those images to kind of even quite understand what you're, 1 second.
Oh, that's
Just to jump in, Tricia, I think
the intent is
I think what
actually
you may be
recreated
referring
faithfully.
to. Yeah. So I think what you may be referring to is that the pitch, the height of the roof of the Chess and Checkers, while somewhat referential to the Kinderberg, the higher part of the Kinderberg, it is the existing building. Yeah. The height of the roof is somewhat higher.
Oh, and you're not doing anything to that?
No.
Kinderberg?
Yeah, this is essentially, and in many respects, I think this is a view you can't see in the park unless you're like hovering in space. So the canopies of the trees and the scale of the canopy of the trees, I mean, although this is kind of referential, the Chess and Checkers roof is somewhat referential to what was there historically. The building is there. It's its own layer, provide public amenity, and the restroom and the thing. It'll actually kind of between the canopies of the trees and the actual rustic structure, we actually think it'll really scale that down considerably. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, the question's been called. All in favor of calling the question? It's unanimous. And now the vote. If you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand by going to the reactions button. Otherwise, we'll take this as a unanimous approval.
I'm just going to read everybody into the record just to make sure I have everybody. Shimamura, Schneider, Later, Farber, Torres, Schneider again, Barton, Siegel, Dangor, and Coleman.
Is there anyone else? If so, raise your hand. Looks like you got everyone.
Great. Thank you very much.
You guys.
Tricia, you want to pick up on the new?
Yeah, I wanted to see if our new parks manager is here, or if Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie, I think, is here for that.
Okay.
And she had something to ask.
Okay.
She's unmuted.
Okay, so just to precurse this a little bit, so we were sad to see that Wes was reassigned to the west side, but we're excited, eager to meet our new parks manager. It's pretty essential for us to have a strong relationship with whoever is that parks manager. We have a lot of issues that come up oftentimes on the weekends, or just things that get broken in our parks, and it's pretty essential to have a good working relationship. So Leslie, I'll kick it off to you. I don't know if you're our new park manager, because that would be weird, but happy to have you here.
No, I am not the new park manager. I don't really know if the new park manager is on the phone. But I will pass this information on to the borough. The park manager comes out of the borough office.
Okay.
But I don't think they are on the phone tonight. But
I don't see her. Excuse me, Leslie. I didn't meet. Her name is Sheena Kaufman, and I met her yesterday at the John Jay Park groundbreaking. So she knows all about us. Unfortunately, for some reason, she's not available to attend this evening. But please, Leslie, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut.
I want you to know that I know Sheena very well. She's wonderful. She's very responsive. You will find her to be a great person to work with at Parks. But I guess you'll meet her next week. The thing that I wanted to ask was, HSS didn't ask at the beginning of the presentation for a resolution, but if we can get a resolution for the Esplanade only, or the Esplanade itself, which QRP showed in the presentation, we would be able to move on to PDC, which would again expedite the whole approval process so that we can get the project into construction as soon as possible. So if you were ready to pass that resolution, that would be great. I don't know if you are or not.
I'm ready. I'm ready to pass it with maybe a certain whereases, but certainly the presentation we made that was made this evening is very, very valuable. Well done.
Okay, and the whereas on the trash receptacles, we heard that. So well-placed trash receptacles.
I defer to the rest of the committee. So on this issue, so two things. One is that there's an issue that is happening in Carl Schurz Park that I know Sandrea Coleman, our board member, would like to raise. And I thought that Sheena was going to be here. So I thought that it would be a fine opportunity for this to be brought. But since she's not here, I still want to have Sandrea speak on it in a second. Sandrea, just give me 2 more minutes on this other issue, because I think that since Leslie brought up this other issue up, what I'm only going to say is not wearing my co-chair hat, but just this project, this HSS project bothers me sometimes, because I just don't like the way that they originally came to us about it. I don't like that we had to hear about it in a full board meeting. I don't like that we don't have real time frames on some of this stuff. That has nothing to do with the design of the Esplanade work. So to that extent, I'll say that I think the design work is lovely. And so if we want to talk about that, then that's fine. But I personally have some real problems with how this project has been going, because I just don't think that they're being true good neighbors on this one. That is what it is. But the design itself, I think from the work that they've already done is really nice. And to have that work continue would be nice, and have it to be continued. But I defer to the rest of the committee on whether or not they want to pass a resolution on this tonight.
A member of the public, Judy Schneider. Public member of the committee.
Yeah, Judy, go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a resolution, and then speak to it. I make a resolution that we approve the presentation by HSS for their portion of the Esplanade work with a specific whereas, or you'll have to help me with the wording this, a stipulation. They come back to us on a regular basis as the project progresses to keep us up to date. I don't know if that's a whereas or if that's part of the resolution. Trish and Barry, you decide that.
I mean, the only other thing I'll raise is that we don't even know how they're going to cover the sinkholes with this.
But Trish, they said they have to fix it. And Leslie is saying they're going to get the money. My first response when I heard that is, I'm making a phone call to Julie Menon tomorrow morning to ask her about monies to help us with the sinkholes on the Esplanade if they don't have any money for it. They're going to find it somewhere. They can't build this building without fixing it.
And as far as the whereas, Judy, I would say, whereas the presenter has agreed to return periodically to bring us updates on the project, on the Esplanade rehabilitation.
Okay, however you want to word it.
Well, we'll work on the details, but the important thing now is after we hear from Stacy to get a vote from the committee.
And also maybe we can put the sinkhole in there as a whereas, and whereas HSS has agreed to work with the Parks Department to decide how the sinkhole project will be taken care of.
All right, well,
okay.
The co-chairs will work that out in the language.
Go ahead. I think Stacy and then Craig.
It wasn't seconded.
Yeah, that was seconded by Rebecca Dangor.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Stacy, you can unmute.
Yeah. So thanks. So a couple of things. One, I guess I'm speaking as a member of the public from Friends of the East River Esplanade because I'm not on the committee. So I have a concern about the plan that they put together, the landscape and vegetation plan, very specifically when they said that they weren't unclear as to who was going to maintain that. We know the current conditions of the Esplanade with very simple vegetation such as lawns and trees. By creating a beautifully, incredibly landscaped place, somebody has got to maintain that on a regular basis, and HSS and Rockefeller take care of their areas in front of their buildings, and they're beautiful. And then you get to the other areas and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I have concern about how this was presented tonight. Secondly, it's a year-old plan and a lot has changed on the Esplanade. And so I think that needs to be addressed. And thirdly, we are presenting to HSS next week about some possible ideas because we have not had any input whatsoever into the HSS plan on the Esplanade. So as a group that's on the Esplanade, you know, Trish, you were talking about it earlier, how much litter we remove and stuff. We're actually presenting to them next week to talk about that. So I just wanted you guys to know that before, you know, you make any decisions one way or another.
Stacey, I think we can craft into the whereases your concerns about maintenance because they did say that they would be conferring with the Parks Department about the maintenance of that area. And in the past, they have taken care of the 68th, I think 68th to 70th or 77 to 72nd Street, the area that they're already have repaired. So I think we can use that as in our whereases.
Okay. Can we go to Craig?
Hi, thank you. Just a few things quickly. Just going back to my point earlier, I would just request that we could have some language in the whereases, just talking about the importance of connectivity and requesting that, however possible, parks work with HSS to try to expedite the work in this section so that we could reopen complete access along the Esplanade as quickly as possible. And then the other thing I want to bring up, I don't have any issues with the design, but I just want to raise a question. And this relates to a lot of what we talked about last night at transportation, where as a community board, we're now going to be trying to, on a committee by committee basis, talk about issues regarding sustainability and climate change. And I guess I just want to ask whether there is anything that we may not have thought of in the past that, or the design may not have incorporated that we could be doing to try to get ahead of things as new best practices emerge in terms of waterfront issues pertaining to the threat of climate change or the arrival of climate change, since it's already here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Rebecca, just to respond quickly before we go to you, to Craig, I think that again, I see the importance, and I guess this goes back to Leslie. I can see the reason for us passing a resolution tonight if it would speed along the repair, if it would help like pave the way, or excuse the pun, or if it would help move Esplanade repairs along at a faster pace. I see the importance in passing this tonight. But in order to Craig's point, expedite the process, make sure that we're focused on connectivity, and I agree that should be part of it. But can you just clarify for me timeline on this? Like with this, does this then allow them to go to the PDC and we just get this thing moving faster?
Yeah, it's only because it's been approved by our commissioner, so that if we get approval and a resolution from you tonight, we would be able to submit to PDC this month.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, it would just hold it up another month if we needed to come back to you next month to present the same thing. But if we were asked to make changes to the design, then that's going to hold up for redesign, and then we would have to go through the whole in-house and commissioner review, and then back to the community board. So that may hold it up for months.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca Danvor?
I'd like to call to question on Judy's resolution and confirm whether or not Craig's initial points are included as friendly amendments.
Okay, so I have where Community Board 8 would support the design proposed by HSS for the area of 70th to 78th Street with a few either whereas or stipulations. A stipulation I think would be to come back to regularly present on the progress of this, and a stipulation would be that these two sinkholes be repaired. But the whereases would also be that, and maybe another stipulation would be to clarify who is going to maintain these plantings for the future. And we would probably have a stipulation on trash cans or waste receptacles, and a stipulation that like the plantings and vegetation used would be in accordance with best practices with resiliency planning, and that any and other measures to increase our resiliency along the waterfront be used, is kind of what I have notes for right now. Craig, is that
satisfactory to me, Patricia? Thank you.
Craig, is that satisfactory to you when it comes to resiliency? And thank you for making those points.
Yes, I think so, and I certainly don't want to hold up the project by delaying this with any additional requests.
Okay.
All right, then I guess my motion stands.
Okay. If you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll take your vote to be a yes in favor of the resolution to approve with stipulations and whereases.
Lowell Barton?
No, without a sound wall, I think you're going to regret it for generations to come.
Anyone else? And then I'll read the names of the board members still in attendance. Doesn't look like it. So we've got Schneider, Barry, Shimamura, Lader, Farber, Torres, Schneider, Judy, Barton, Siegel, Dangor, Coleman.
Yes, but Barton is a no. So I moved Barton to no, and everybody else got it. Great.
Thank you, Will.
Judy, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I meant to say before I made the resolution to Leslie, and I don't know if HSS is still here or not. But Leslie, could you talk to them? Maybe they could fund at that spot Tricia and Stacy are cleaning a big belly trash can to help collect all the trash. That would make a big difference.
Absolutely. Yes, we will ask them to put that in the design.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're back to the topic of our new parks manager. Leslie, not to add more to your plate, but I would really like her to come to our meeting. I'm disappointed that she's not here today, and I know things come up, but it is really important for us to have a good relationship. And it was, everybody was pretty bummed that Wes has been reassigned. One of the issues that's been brought up recently by another member has been what's been happening at the Black Lives Matter memorial at Carl Schurz Park. And so not that this is, I know, within your portfolio, but Sandria, I know that you came specifically to talk about that. So I wanted to give you a chance to speak on it.
All right. Greetings all. Yes, I'm a member of CB8 and also a co-chair of the Social Justice Committee. I would like to propose a resolution regarding the vandalism at the UES for BLM visual site. So I want to put that out and then I want to speak to it if possible.
Okay, you can
go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Continue. Okay. So like I said, I want to raise the awareness of the visual site at Carl Schurz Park. The vigil has been in place since June 2nd of 2020. It has gone on nightly for more than 400 days. We have transitioned into the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I have been attendee since day one, which is June 2nd of 2020. And I became an organizer of the UES for BLM vigil in July of 2020. So I've been doing it a very long time. Over the time, we have endured vandalism early on, such as signs being spray painted, ripped, slashed, feces over the victim faces and stuff like that. And that the feces thing is getting worse. It has been pretty much weekly, sometimes twice a week. Some of the organizers are here, John, Robin, and Fred. John and Robin are husband and wife, and Fred, and they come out and help clean it up, replace it. And we try our best to maintain the site because we know people visit it daily, people from the community, as well as people come from all over just to come out because they know we're still there, just to visit it. Children visit the site, their parents, classes have been there. It's been used for educational purposes as well. We also have colorful chalk outside in a little box, little clear box container. So the kids or whoever want to mark, draw in the park, they can. So we're very, friendly with the community as well. We also would like to have that area or a piece of that area officially dedicated to the vigil, since we've been there so long and since the issue is still going on with police violence against people of color, mainly Black people. And because we have been assembling over a year, we want to leave a historical footprint, which it could be anything from a plaque, mural, or something like that. But I know that's something we would have to work on collectively. But yeah, so that's basically the gist of it. It's horrible. We don't want to leave it up because it's injecting more pain on people of color to see feces or the slashes. So we do our best to maintain it. But the workers, I think it's 6 of us that are organizers now, 6 including me, and it's difficult, to keep it maintained. And there's cameras right there, so the person doesn't care. One of the organizers that is here actually was in the park one night, and actually it was clean. And actually, when he seen somebody walk up with their dogs and to the site, and then they left, and then he discovered, yes, they smeared feces there. So it's hate. It's hateful. It's ugly. And we want, hopefully to pass a resolution and also to get some help from the community board and maybe find out who's doing the vandalism, get that uncovered too. So thank you.
Andrea, you mentioned that you have a resolution, but I didn't hear the resolution. Could you put it on the floor, please?
Yes, I would like to propose a resolution regarding the vandalism that's happening at UES for BLM, to hopefully help get it, bring awareness to it as well, to get it stopped, maybe to have the cameras reviewed that are right out there in front of the park. So maybe they can catch whoever's doing it, but some type of, somebody could probably help me with the wording, Trisha, or somebody, I don't know.
So Sandra, if I might suggest what I think that what I'm hearing is that you'd like to propose a resolution that Community Board 8 condemns the vandalism that's been going on, that's been taking place in Carl Schurz Park, and requests that the Parks Department and NYPD and any other enforcement PEP officers or anybody else, I guess we can figure that out, do everything they can to stop these activities and recognize the importance of this vigil or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty in the gist of it. Yeah.
Sounds good, Tricia.
Sorry, Barry, go ahead.
We'll tailor a couple of questions, a couple of words I would add, but that's what you said is fine as a resolution. Is there a second?
I think Rebecca Danforth had her hand up.
Please second it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Hi. First, I just want to say, I know, Sandrea, this isn't the first time you've had to come before the board to discuss the vandalism at this particular location. So I would love to see, and I'm pretty sure this has been the case since the beginning. So I would want to make sure that's stressed in the resolution. I would also propose a friendly amendment that says CB8M vehemently condemns, or however you want to phrase it, the vandalism itself, not just the solution, but that it's crazy that this has been, I think this is the fourth time Sandrea at least has had to speak in a board meeting about this.
And it's been going on since we've been there. It's just gotten worse with the feces now, much more.
Yeah, so I'd like to see the first, I guess, whereas clause, see that, we as a board fully condemn what's been happening.
Strongly, how about strongly condemn?
Yeah, whatever you feel, as long as that's okay with Sandrea.
Thank you.
I see, thanks, Rebecca.
And if, I don't know, I know some organizers on there, I don't know if they want to speak for a minute. If they do, please raise your hand. If you want to raise your hand, because you're public, so you can be recognized if you want to.
Great, thanks. I see Judy. I'm gonna go to the other those who haven't spoken yet on this one. CF Brewer, and then John Pavin, and then Judy Schneider.
CF, go ahead and unmute. And just identify yourself.
Yeah, this is Curtis Brewer. I'm an organizer for BLM along with Andrea. And I just wanted to emphasize the public health. I'm a professor at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and I've been very worried about the public health aspects of the smeared feces on the posters. We have classes of kids from Brearley coming by, and the young girls are close to the posters, and other kids come close when they come by with their parents. And it really is a public health hazard. So we've been very concerned about that. And this has been going on for much too long, and it really has to stop. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can add that as a whereas clause in this resolution. Thank you. John Pavin.
Hi, I'm John. I've been trying to help out with the vigil for a bit over a year. And I'm one of the people that have been trying to clean up and restore any damage. And I just like to say that thank you for support, for positive messages, reaction to Sandrea's proposal. And I hope that at some point we might consider some sort of permanent memorial or vigil somewhere. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We'll go to Judy and then Lowell and then Rebecca.
I have a question for Sandrea. Sandrea, has anyone gone to the Sector D police officers to see if they can do anything about this from the 19th precinct? And also listening to the what the prior gentleman said, maybe also reaching out to the health department. If this is of health concern, might not be a bad idea for Will from the community board to send a copy of the resolution. So I was just wondering about the police.
So we are planning to make a report, but the police, it's been a different change in, I guess, police. The police are up the block, working, guarding. They're on a detail for the mayor, so they guard the mansion. So they're always out there. And they have been aware of some of the incidents that have happened. But what they would tell us is, because I guess they're from different places. I'm actually a former member of service. I used to work with NYPD over 24 years, medically retired. But they would tell us if it's anything related to police, we would have to either call 911 and or go in ourselves. So it's nothing, no reports they can take.
That's not the question I was asking. I wasn't talking about the mayor's police. The 19th precinct, as you know, is divided into sectors, and I believe that would be Sector D. And I would reach out to the NCOs of Sector D directly and talk to them about it. I can email you separately their contact information, but I would certainly reach out to the precinct.
Yes, thank you. I actually worked out of the 19th. That was my first command. So like I said, we didn't actually go yet to make a physical report yet. So we have planned to. I believe it's going to be Fred and myself. We definitely wanted to bring it and address it to the community board. And thank you for that. But I do kind of understand how things work, because that was my first command. I worked it for well over 10 years. So it's just a matter of also going in there, and unclear how we're going to be received as well, since it's individual. But it's vandalism, as Fred said, it's a health hazard. So we are going to put it on paper and see what can be done. Maybe the cameras can be reviewed as well, because I'm aware that cameras are there. So they'll review it for anything else. So it's a possibility. But we wanted to also bring it to the community board to get some assistance from you all too. Thank you. Thank you.
Lowell?
Yes, on the subject of the cameras, can the community board write a letter requesting who has those cameras to share the footage with the community board, so we could therefore share it with the organizers and even make it go viral if we have to?
I think that I can add that the link that the camera footage be shared with the organizers right in the resolution. If everybody agrees with that, I can just.
We have to do a weekly request. That would be great. Till we get them. If there's footage, they should have it. And we should have it as well.
Well, that may be a police matter, but let's cross that bridge.
It may be a FOIA request. I think freedom of information. If it is government owned, then we should have that footage.
Okay, I'll put it into the resolution, and after everybody speaks, I'm going to try to summarize it for us, just to hear it out loud one more time, just to see where we're at.
Rebecca?
Thank you.
Hi, thanks. I have a question and then a comment. The question is for Sandrea and the other organizers on the call. Do you guys have any idea if there's like a usual time that this vandalism happens? And if so, do you know around what time that is? And then I'll say my comment after.
Yes, it's been most likely late at night, maybe after 9, 10. But we, in our group chat, whoever checks the visual, it could be early in the morning, let us know it's okay, or let us know that there's a problem. So being that some of the organizers do live pretty close by, that they can walk, do their walking, they would always check the visual. But it's not hardly during the day hours when, the park is really, people are just out there. In daylight, it's mostly they strike most of the time in the evening, late or early in the morning. And also on rainy days, they strike because people are not out there, so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I suspected, because what I was going to suggest, which might be a little more difficult late at night, was that maybe we could get a group of people to take shifts watching it, just to maybe scare them away in a different type of way. But if it's super late, that might not be as successful in terms of deterring the vandalism, but maybe it can show a community support in a different kind of way. And I'd be happy to participate in, spending a couple hours whenever I have a free time watching it. I'm sure there are many other people, but I think late at night, if that's when it's happening, it's a little more difficult, but maybe we can show support during the day or during rainy days as well.
Yeah, but there has been some, I don't really want to talk on record, but there's been a little severe here and there. And also, like I said, one of the members that was here that spoke, actually, like I said, was in the park and the person smeared, and they actually seen the person with 2 dogs, but they really don't know who the person is. So, it's hard to identify, but if we had the cameras, if the cameras actually would get them, then we would know who it is. If it's a crime or not, that all depends. If there's a public health hazard, and vandalism is a crime, but I don't know. We could report it, but still, I don't even know how it would go under, because it's in the parks department, but it's also a public park. So I don't know what misdemeanor it would fall under, but it is a problem, or maybe even a violation. I'm not sure.
And I guess the last point I'll make, I went to Burley for 13 years, and I know, at least when I was there, and I'm sure it's the same, especially in COVID, quite often students go there during the school day, and I'm happy to help put you guys in contact with some Burley people who I'm sure would be happy to be an additional eyes and ears.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Okay, so I'm going to read this, but I will just say one more thing about this. A couple, when the Amy Cooper situation came up in Central Park, this committee had a long discussion about what our mission statement is, or what our kind of driving statement is for what this committee would focus on. And ultimately we came out with slightly editing our mission for this committee, saying that we wanted to ensure that parks were safe and open to everyone. And so I think this is really appropriate to pass a resolution on this, because as Andrea said, it is vandalism and it is hate. And this really falls in line with what our committee has said that we were going to focus on and do. I have generally taken notes saying that the CB8 strongly condemns the vandalism occurring in Carl Schurz Park at the UES for BLM memorial and vigil, and calls on the Parks Department and the NYPD to do everything they can to stop these acts of hate. I'll do some whereas clauses, but whereas some history that Sandrea shared about the movement, whereas that this has come up before, whereas that this is a public health concern, and then I will add a request for any camera footage or other information to be shared with the public.
All in favor of supporting the resolution, raise your, if you put it another way, if you're opposing it, if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Otherwise, it will go down as a unanimous approval.
I think I think Shimamura, Schneider, Later, Farber, Torres, Schneider, Barton, Siegel, Dan Gorse, and Coleman.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for bringing that to our attention and asking us to take action on it. Leslie?
And thank you very much for bringing it to Parks' attention. And I will pass this on immediately to both Sheena and Steve Simon. I know you put it in the resolution, but I just want to make sure he knows about it right away.
Thank you so
Terrific.
much.
Thank you. Any other matters of new business? Tricia, I'll let you say it.
I'm sorry, Barry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to mention the Muslim volunteers for Rupert Park were not able to stay for the length of the meeting, but they just asked me to report that the recent It's My Parks Day was a huge success. They planted around 2,600 bulbs, which is amazing, at the fall planting, and save your date for May 21, 2021 for their next event.
Good, thank you. I was there. It was a wonderful event. They do a great job in the park. Yes, Charlie.
Charlie, unmute.
Thanks. Is my item under a new or old? I'm not quite sure where I should be chiming in on this, but it's the. Let me just read this. This is my name is Charles Whitman. I live at 45 East End Avenue, and as some of you know, I was one of the community reps on the 81st Street Pedestrian Bridge project, working through CB8 with the city agencies involved. I'm very excited about the new project for the renewal of the Esplanade from 81st to 90th Street, which will restore that stretch aesthetically, practically, and bring it into compliance with new standards. And I commend everybody who made it possible. The presentation to Joint Parks and Transportation Committee was made in June of 2021 with the intent of presenting a design for the first phase, which was 81st through 84th Street, by December. I'm interested in getting an update on the first phase. What is the status of the design stage? Is it still on target for completion in December? And finally, but very important, will the community directly affected by the project be consulted during the design process? The two residential buildings most affected by the first stage are 45 East End and 33 East End, both of which are front not only the Esplanade, but also the 81st Street cul-de-sac, which will probably be the cul-de-sac most affected by the project. We look forward to getting an update on the project, and we hope that DOT and Parks will reach out through the committee to the community representatives. We've worked in the past to help achieve what's best for our residents and the overall community, and hope we're given the opportunity to do it once again. And
Charlie,
really,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No, that's fine. I think the main thing is, what we're looking for here is, it's a big project. It's been dark, in a way, it's been dark since June, so we really don't know what's going on there. And I feel, there's a need for more connectivity with the community on what's happening in phase one, the 81 through 84.
Okay.
And so I'm asking, I don't know how we follow through on this, but I would like to have I would think a presentation to the committee and an involvement with the community.
Charlie, I was at the meeting last night of the transportation. I heard that you read the same document that you just read now. This morning, I called the Ed Pinkar's office, and Ed Pinkar had someone respond to me this afternoon. The quote is, "The design phase for John Finley Walk, FDR East River, 81st to 90th Street is on schedule to be completed by December of this year as originally scheduled." We can follow that up with a request that they come back in December and confirm it, and then bring us up to date on where they are in the entire project. But regarding your specific question, yes, they are on target for meeting the December 2021 deadline for the design process to be complete.
And I guess my concern there is that there's been no outreach to the community at all on that. And so I don't know, given that we were very, as many of you know, we're very involved in the pedestrian bridge and are very familiar with that area. I think it would be very beneficial for us to be talking to them somewhere in the process. And what I don't want to do, I think what's counterproductive for all of us is if they make a presentation and we haven't been consulted, then it's like, there's no preparation and understanding and dialogue. I think a lot of these things could be headed off with a fruitful discussion.
Well, I'll discuss it with Chuck and Craig tomorrow. It says this is a project being done by the DOT, not the New York Parks Department. I'll tell them they'll be able to watch it. Craig's online, and Chuck will watch this tomorrow, and we'll get some kind of resolution, and I'll have someone will be back in touch with you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I appreciate your help.
My pleasure. Barbara, you have a question or comment? Goldenberg.
So unmute yourself.
Hi, this is old business, so I guess we're in that section if that's all right. One of what I have is a comment and the other is a question. My comment is really, I agree with you, Tricia, on some of your reactions to the HSS presentation. I think what we all heard was a lot of, candidly corporate community relations PR about we're going to communicate, we're going to coordinate, we're going to this and that, but not a lot of commitment to really take any action and to being a good neighbor. HSS, in addition to this building, obviously we all saw the announcement about they're going to be the anchor tenant at that huge building at 79th and First. So they are having an increasingly large footprint on the neighborhood, and candidly, they're going to be making a lot of money. And, to the extent that it's feasible for us to apply any pressure on them or to speak strongly to them, that we're expecting them to be a good neighbor and they can, frankly, water the plants. Not a big deal. Anyway, that's my comment, and I am agreeing with you, Tricia. The other is a question, and it has to do with the improvements of the Esplanade above 96th Street. And I think, Stacy, you had mentioned that there was going to be a meeting with the EDC about how that was going to proceed. So I didn't know if we knew anything further and whether or not you could shed any light on that, or anybody else could shed any light on that.
That's CB11. So we'll give it to Stacy although we support all efforts to improve the Esplanade and it's one Esplanade, we'll just pass it off to Stacy to give updates.
Hi, thanks, Barbara. So two things. We have a meeting with Congressman Esplanade, his new legislative director, next week to talk to her about the work north of 96th Street. And then we're working right now with Commissioner Kavanaugh's team to put together our follow-up meeting with Parks and EDC to talk about repairs north of 96th Street. So I'm waiting to get, one is scheduled with Esplanade and waiting to schedule EDC and Parks with Kavanaugh.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks for letting me know. I guess in general, in that section, obviously there's capital improvements, but there's also, and this is maybe a question for Parks Department, is there any reason why at the very least, the grass can't be cut or the weeds can't be pulled, while we're waiting for the capital improvements? I mean, it looks like just a disaster up there. So that's really a question for Parks.
Barbara, may I suggest you take this to the Parks Committee of CD11, where this is their home territory?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Leslie is on the call too, and even though this is not her, I know Leslie's not. This is maintenance. Is not her portfolio, but thank you. I see you taking notes.
I'm actually typing to Steve Simon right now, so
thank you.
That's going in my note. Thank you.
Very good.
I just want to say one more. Oh, go ahead.
So is there somebody that I personally can follow up with individually?
Barbara, you should talk to Stacy. Remind me of CB11's Parks Chair. Is her name Jennifer or Jessica?
Jessica Elliott is CB11 Parks Chair. Barbara, you could speak with her. David Williams is the manager who took over for Sheena Kaufman, who is now the Parks Manager for this district. Used to be in CB11. She moved down here, and now David Williams is the Park Manager at CB11.
If I could ask you a favor, I can't write, I can't type, is it possible for you to sort of post that information somewhere? Because I can't write it down.
Yeah, Stacy, if you send me the, that's public stuff. So that you can, Stacy, if you just send me the contact information, I'm happy to post it in our minutes.
Sure.
Beautiful.
Great.
Thanks a million.
Not a problem.
Just one more comment on this, and then I think I'm good. But Barbara, to your point about HSS, I've learned HSS is not going to go anywhere, but neither is the community board. So we need to figure out a way to build some sort of relationship and take care of this neighborhood that we both are going to belong into for the foreseeable future. I agree with you 100% that there's a lot of things going on with HSS right now, and our priority is always going to be the Esplanade. So we will put in language about the maintenance that's was passed in our resolution tonight. We will, we will be advocating for them. There's never going to be, in my opinion, a final battle between entities, nor is it really a battle. It's just that we will mutually, coexist. So we got to figure out a way to do so and to take care of our neighborhood. So we'll push as hard as we can to advocate, for the Esplanade always, and you'll see that in our resolution.
That having been said, I'd like to propose that we adjourn now and we meet again back in December. Everyone have a good night. Thank you very much for your participation and your patience.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.